What is going on, guys? Benny here. We are here today to talk about these three things that iFi sent me. The iFi Zen Blue, the iFi Zen DAC, and the iFi Zen Can. Didn't we already do these? But actually, this is the Air line. So there is the most budget line that they have for their desktop solutions, as well as like you could use this Bluetooth in like a bigger system like this if you want to have it be wireless. But with that, we'll go over these guys after the intro. Alright guys, so let's go over these kind of one by one, kind of like really fast. With them, I would have to say, really fast, right? So with this guy, this is the iFi Zen Blue. So this is a Bluetooth receiver. A couple of things for all of these that did change in terms of the bigger brothers of them is the materials. So on all three of these, the materials have changed. So the front fascia and back fascia of all three are plastic now. And then also the actual outside of it is plastic as well. You still get the rubber feet on them. And then on both the Zen Can and the Zen DAC, you do get the metal knob still though. But there are a few changes, so we'll go over those. And I'll kind of review these kind of like super fast if I can. So with that, this is the iFi Zen Blue. So with this guy, it does show a kilohertz light right here when it is plugged in, and I don't really remember what they are, but I'll put it up here somewhere, and it'll tell you what they are. I think green, I'm gonna guess, green is 44.1 kilohertz sample rate, and then I think, that's the only one I know. I think the yellow is higher, and then I think the magenta one is usually their MQA. So with that, this guy, for me, you guys kind of know by now that most Bluetooth I dislike. This one, the reason being is because for most, literally most, it kind of thins out the top and definitely thins out the low end. So you kind of lose your mid bass and bass frequencies when you use Bluetooth. But what I have noticed is if you can use LDAC if you have it, because LDAC, it does help boost those frequencies because you're pushing out a lot more information. But with this guy being what it is, and I think this guy's like 130, 149, I'll put up all the links to them so you guys can see what the prices are. But with that, this does do the job. But for me, always, I've never been a huge fan of actual Bluetooth receivers. But with that, that's kind of what I gotta say about that guy. So on the front, has a light of what kilohertz sample you have, and then a Bluetooth pairing button as well. And then on the back, we do have one output, which is single-ended, because this is the budget line. You don't get like balanced or anything like that. And then with that, you do get a DC 5 volt on the back as well. So put that guy down. Let's go over the iFi Zen DAC. So I have reviewed the iFi Zen DAC version 1, as well as the iFi Zen DAC version 2. So if you haven't seen those reviews, go back and watch those, and you'll kind of see what my overall view of those are. And those are made out of metal on the front and back, as well as the top. And there are a couple changes on the actual outputs and inputs on this, because the Zen DAC, just like the other ones, this also is a combo headphone amp as well. So on the front here, we have a power match button. So basically their gain switch. You have their awesome volume knob, and it's smooth just like every other one, which is great. So I'm glad they kept that in this line. And then you have a single-ended headphone out, and then an X-Bass plus button. And it's nice that they've kept that X Bass Plus button in there. But I did notice when I did use it with my open back headphones, it's still a nice balance of bass. It's not just like gobs of it. It's very nice and sweet, and it does give you the bass that you want for your open headphones. So on the back, kind of strange. So on the back, we'll go to left to right. We have single-ended out, USB, and DC 5 volt. That's it though. So you can power it off USB or use the DC 5 volt. What's missing, right? What's missing? So the thing that's missing back here is the fixed and variable switch, as well as the 4.4 Penacon out, which is what we're missing as well. So no balanced out for this guy, and you lose that preamp ability, which you can't change it to fixed to variable, so you could use this as a preamp if you have powered monitors, or even using it as a preamp for just a powered amp. And then on the front, you do also lose that 4.4 Penacon output for your headphones, which is kind of sad, but you do get that X Bass Plus on the front as well. But I like that they still kept with the smooth volume knob, which is great. And then this one, it still does MQA. I do believe it is a decoder. I forget what the other word is. Yeah, but with that, so getting to the Zen Can, we have on the front power button, 3 inputs for this button, and this is not bad in terms of that. Then we have a gain button. They actually called it gain on this one. And this one, what I did notice is it's 0, 9 decibel, and 18 decibel. That good volume knob again. But with this guy, which is kind of weird, it does have an output single-ended and then an S balanced. And then you have a button for X Bass and X Space. So with that, it's kind of like their 3D holographic as well as X Bass, and you kind of push it to use both. Then on the back here, we have a 3.5 millimeter input, single-ended RCA inputs, and you get 2 of those, and then a DC 5 volt power. So with that, this guy obviously comes with the power, but it's just the USB. So one of the things, obviously I don't need to really go over the Bluetooth part, because Bluetooth is Bluetooth and it sounds decent for what it is in terms of cost. But let's go back to the Zen Can here. So like I said in my previous reviews, if you have the Zen Can version 1, the bigger boy, I think that one's 200, that guy, yeah, we went over the missing pieces, but there's something about that DAC that's different from this one. And I think what it is you kind of lose, with this DAC, you lose a little bit of that I would say sense of space and kind of your sound stage. Instead of on the older one and the version 2, you kind of think of like the space is like out here. So it's away from your head and there's breathing room in between the instruments. Not a lot, but it is definitely noticeable from what I remember. And then when I listen to this guy, it's very much in here. It's in your head. And it still has space. It is a little bit more compressed, so it doesn't breathe as well in terms of space and spatial awareness. Like you can't, the left to right is very centered is what it feels like. But in terms of that, it doesn't sound bad. It's very balanced between the frequency ranges, but you lose that sound stage with this guy. And then a little bit of that mid bass too kind of disappears, which is a little weird because they still use the Burr Brown chips in this, I think. But with that, yeah, that's what you kind of lose going down to the most budget friendly iFi Zen DAC. What I would do is I love the Zen DAC and the Zen DAC version 2. If you can, I think this guy goes for 130 right now. If that's the case, and you don't want to wait, there are better ones that you can get that do offer a little bit better clarity, better space, as well as better bass. And I don't want to mention some of those, but if I were to compare some, the only one I have right now in-house to kind of compare to in price is my SMSL M100, old school. Has a little bit more clarity and resolution up top than this guy, and a little bit more bass presence as well. But the sound stage is still pretty darn narrow on that other DAC. Another DAC around this price that I would definitely recommend would be the Shit Audio Modi DAC, because I believe that one's 100 to 120. You get about as many features as this guy does. You get a DC 5-in, one single-ended out, and then USB in, but then you don't get the usability of this being a combo of having it used as a headphone amp as well. But in terms of strictly DAC, that one does sound a lot better than this one. But with this one, you both get a DAC, a very well, I guess, heard DAC in terms of it does what it needs to do, and then you also get a headphone amp. So that's kind of what I have to say about this guy. It's not that I don't like it. It does what it needs to do, and then it gives you the option for a headphone amplifier as well. And it does do a very decent job in terms of powering things. So I used two different IAMs on this guy. I used my Starfields as well as my my C Audio Braveries, and then I also used my Aria version 1s on this as well, and this powers it perfectly fine. You're not going to be able to blow your ears out with it, but it does power it enough to where it does have that nice presence and you can't hear anything outside, so it has enough power for that. So something that surprised me about this guy. Let's go on to the iFi Zen Can now. One of the things for me, I didn't like the iFi Zen Can, the metaled version one, the one above this, very much. It did something to the sound where it felt like, again, it kind of did what the opposite of what the DAC does, budget DAC does. More expensive Zen Can would be sparkly up top. I'm strictly telling you without using X-Bass and X3D. It would be really thin in the bass and mid bass, but then it would be really forward in the mids and highs, and it had a decent amount of resolution up top. And obviously you could use the X-Bass button, but I'm just going strictly off of how it sounds out of the box without touching anything. And what's funny is this guy I like better than the regular Zen DAC. The only thing that, it's really weird. It really surprised me because out of the box, listening to this on the S-Balance out or even single-ended, it has authority in the bass and mid bass. And then in terms of the mids and voices for male and women, it kind of puts it in the mix where it's not so forward and it's not in the background. It's right where it should be. And then it gives you enough sparkle up top where for most people that's fine unless you're like really trying to get that resolution. And then also this guy too, the sense of space is better than the regular Zen deck. And I don't understand why. It's really weird, but I'm glad that this one, to me and my ears, that it does sound better than the regular Zen can. So what you could do is get the Zen deck version 2 and then get this guy if you really wanted to. The only thing you'd be missing out on is your 4.4 Penacon like into this guy, but it sounds better out of the box. So I think, yeah, I would do that if that was the case. Get the Zen deck version 2 and then get this guy instead of the regular iFi Zen deck, because I didn't hear much of a difference going through the 4.4 Penacon balanced output from the Zen deck version 2 to the regular Zen deck, and it might just sound fine here. So it'd be very balanced, transparent, slam with authority, not too forward in terms of your voicing, and then good resolution up top. That'd be a pretty good pairing, I think. But one caveat, so I'm gonna kind of go over a very big negative that I did find with these guys, and I had to ask iFi for it. So when you use that little dinky cable that comes from the DC and goes into USB, what I did notice in both my Arias, Sundaras, as well as both of my IEMs, I could hear that noise floor. I could hear it, and it bugged the shit out of me. And I was like, okay, hey iFi, could you guys send me some of your iFi power adapters so I could use those to power that instead of my USB? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And they sent those to me. And when I used those, it lowered that noise floor immensely. So I couldn't, like, you could hear it in I could hear it in my IEMs, but I'd have to turn it all the way the hell up to be able to hear it. So it dropped it a good like -20 to -30 dB, where it's not noticeable unless it's turned all the way up, which is really sad in my head. Another way you could do it that did help it a little bit, that was kind of in between, which was to power these, I used those USB cables, but I used like a power bank to power these, so then it matches the amount of power going into this exactly, instead of having all that electrical noise over USB from your computer. That helped a lot too. If you don't want to buy the iFi powers, you could use that too. But for best results, for lowest noise floor possible, if you're using IEMs with these, just grab actual wall wart in terms of getting their iFi iPower little guy. I would definitely recommend that. But for the most part, with all three of these guys, I would recommend all of them, because in terms of that, like I said, for a DAC that's this capable, it's hard to find one that is both a DAC and a headphone amp. Very hard to find. And then also with that, this guy, like I said, sounds better. The iFi Zen Can Air, to me, sounds better than the regular iFi Zen Can. So for me, I'd grab this guy over the other one. And yeah, it's made out of plastic, but it's fine. It sounds better to me. But with that, I would recommend all of these, especially if you're trying to stay within a specific budget. If you need, with that, there are other things out there, like I said, around this price point. But in terms of the features you get for the pricing of all of these, you can't find it. You just can't. Even with topping, like they're very straightforward and very clean and everything, but these have something special about them, and iFi knows that. And the craziest thing is iFi, the only time it ever really like loses is against itself, because they have so much in terms of lines of different lines. I keep saying lines like I'm doing coke. But yeah, they have different lines that are just better. Good, better, best, bestest, bester, best ever. It's kind of like their thing. What I want to see sometime in the future is I want to see them make a freaking speaker power amp. That would be awesome. A speaker power amp and then a good preamp. That would be awesome. I'd be so happy if iFi did that. Specifically for that. But with that, guys, like I said, in terms of if you're trying to keep within a budget, the iFi Zen Air Line, very good line. Hard to beat with features as well as sound. But for me, I would get the Zen Can version 2, the metal one, and then get the iFi Zen Can Air. Save a little bit of money and better on the sound. Alright guys, this has kind of been a long, stupid review. Kind of a talking head. Sorry about that. But like that, guys, with that, guys, like the video, subscribe, do all those cool things. Look at my upcoming reviews as well. I have a lot coming up in the next few weeks, and I will see you guys in the next review. Have a good day, guys. Good morning, good evening, and good night. Have a good one. Later.